start with a show of hands. Put your hand up if you think that this political, economic, social system sucks and we have to change it with a new system. Perfect. It seems like almost everyone. So I will not try to convince you that we have to make a revolution. I will not even explain why this system sucks. Rather, I will spend my next 35 minutes in explaining what we can do to change it, to change the existing social, economic, political system. And the views that I will express here are not necessarily mine. Well, I believe in those views, but these are the classical revolutionary Marxist views. So there are several recipes for changing this system, capitalism, and revolutionary Marxists have a distinct view that is tested with the course of historical events. And I will be focusing on three notions which make up the spine of the Marxist theory. The first concept is permanent revolution. Secondly, a phenomenon, Stalinism, and the Marxist critique of Stalinism. And thirdly, transitional demands. Let me start with permanent revolution. In fact, let me start with the notion of revolution. Obviously, it is a very commonplace word. We hear about revolution, the word revolution everywhere. Steve Jobs made a revolution. Every time a new version of the iPhone is there, there's a revolution. It's a very common word. But for Marxists, it has a specific meaning. It's a term, if you like. It's a concept. And it has a general meaning and a specific meaning. Let's start with the general. The general meaning of revolution for socialists is to change the mode of production, that is capitalism. It is to change the foundations of the society that we live in. It's to change the way we interact with each other. It's to change the way we produce things. It's the way we share what we produce. And it means creating a society that has no social classes. So revolution in general sense is a transition, a process from a society like capitalism based on exploitation of the masses by capitalism into a society that has no classes, no social classes. The word revolution also has a more specific meaning. It means capturing the state power by a certain social class. Let's give the example of Russian Revolution that took place in 1917. That was a revolution which did not change the mode of production. It did not create a society that is free of social classes. So in that terms, it wasn't a revolution from capitalist society to classless society. But it was a revolution in a more specific sense. It was a revolution because the working class captured the state power out of the hands of the ruling classes, the bourgeoisie and landed aristocracy. So with revolution we mean these two things. One, a long-term process of changing this mode of production, the social structure, into a society where there are no longer classes, and a more specific meaning, which means taking over the state power by the masses, this working class. What about permanent revolution? Here I have to talk about the history and theory a bit. Capitalism was not always a reactionary force. When it was first established in the Western European countries, it had a progressive dimension. In fact, it brought up an immense increase in the productive forces, meaning humankind was able to produce more goods in a shorter period of time thanks to capitalism. And secondly, the bourgeoisie, that social class, which are the leaders of capitalist world today, had a progressive character when capitalism was first came into being. Bourgeoisie, in its struggle against the landed aristocracy, another social class, enabled to humankind to have freedoms such as freedom of expression, free press. It destroyed the old chains of the feudalism, the old forms of inequality and oppression, thanks to bourgeoisie, were demolished. But capitalism lost its progressive character, especially in the 19th century. Especially, to be more specific, around 1870s, it became evident that capitalism was no longer consisted of those progressive forces. And similarly, bourgeoisie no longer had that progressive character. Here's what I mean. Capitalism was based on competition when it first came into being. But due to the DNA of capitalism, which is marked with competition, and which is marked with concentration and centralization of capital, that competitive dynamic is replaced by monopolies. And capitalism no longer relied on its revolutionary power of getting rid of the landed bureaucracy to expand. Rather, it started to rely on wars, imperialist techniques of surplus appropriation of other countries, so on and so forth. And that process of decay, which started around mid-19th century, led into 2 world wars. Why is this important? It is important because many social democrats believe that bourgeoisie still had a progressive character. That meant the working classes could ally with bourgeoisie in order to make progressive developments, in order to make progress. They said, just like in the French Revolution, we can ally with the bourgeoisie to bring freedom and equality to human societies. But that failed wrong. That idea failed because, as I said, towards the end of the 19th century, bourgeoisie no longer had that progressive character, and capitalism was in decay. And against this view that we have to ally with bourgeoisie, Marxists argued for independence, class independence of the working class, away from the liberals. Well, for the sake of let's make an analogy. So those who said bourgeoisie still had a progressive character, today would argue that NDP should make alliances with the liberals. Because liberals is a bourgeois party, the progressive segment of the bourgeoisie. Or in the United States, they could say, let's vote for the Democratic Party, they have progressive tendencies. But according to the Marxists, the bourgeoisie and their political representatives, like the Liberal Party or the Democratic Party in the United States, have nothing to give to the working class. So permanent revolution, that theory, advocates class independence. It also says that we cannot stop with the bourgeois revolutions. In order to achieve economic development, freedom of press, freedom of expression, bourgeois values, we need a socialist revolution. Let me remind you that although these notions, freedom of press, freedom of expression, economic development, were product of capitalism and the product of the bourgeoisie's war against the landed aristocracy, these are now tasks for the working class to achieve because these tasks can no longer be accomplished by the bourgeoisie. Permanent revolution, that concept includes that understanding. And the lesson from this concept for today is that we need class independence. NDP should not make alliances with the liberals or conservatives, which represent the bourgeois class here in Canada. So that's permanent revolution. And secondly, let's talk about Stalinism. Well, obviously that notion refers to the politics and principles of Joseph Stalin, which led the Soviet Union for a while. But unlike some liberal theoreticians who think that Stalinism is about the personal characteristics of Joseph Stalin, Marxists, or revolutionary Marxists, criticize Stalinism by understanding the structural characteristics of Stalinism. Here's what I mean. Stalinism is marked by two characteristics. First, bureaucratization, and secondly, Stalinism is also marked with the second component or premise of Stalinism is that socialism in one country is possible. Bureaucratization as a process, and socialism in one country. Let's start with the first one, bureaucratization. So, under the leadership of Joseph Stalin, the democracy, workers' democracy, that was a foundational element in the Russian Revolution, was replaced by bureaucrats of the party who had isolated interests than the rest of the working class. So a class, not a class, but a segment of a class came into being which had distinct interests from the working class. So they represented the working class, but they had autonomous interests from the rest of the working class. Again, let's give another example from today's times. Obviously, NDP is not a communist party, but to compare these two, we can think about the leadership of the NDP. Well, NDP is still a working class organization, and its leaders represent the working class, but the leaders, the cadre, the hacks, party hacks, develop their own distinct interests, which are not necessarily the interest of the rest of the working class. The same example can be drawn from the labor movement. Think about Oxford, the leader of Oxford, Smokey Thomas. He developed his own interests, which are not necessarily in alignment with the interests of the membership. Let's go back to Stalinism. So, bureaucracy replacing the workers' democracy was a very important characteristic of Stalinism. And secondly, socialism in one country. Actually, Joseph Stalin's politics was towards that direction. Instead, he advocated an isolated socialist struggle within the boundaries of the Soviet Union and did not create the necessary ties with the rest of the working class movement in other countries. This is in opposition to our understanding of internationalism, which is built on the premise that the workers don't have a nation. All workers, including Chinese workers, Canadian workers, Turkish workers, have a common interest, and their interests are in complete opposition to the bourgeoisie interest. That is to say, again, let's give an example from today's world. Read the social democratic press today. They will complain about the China, and they will try to position the war as an economic war, as if it is between China and Canada, for example. They would argue that in order to serve the Canadian interest, in order to save the Canadian workers, we have to support the Canadian state's interest against Chinese interest. That's untrue. That hides a fact, which is the interests of the Chinese workers and Canadian workers are in alignment, they're in common, and they're against the boss's interest in China and in Canada. So Stalinism, that notion of socialism in one country is broken from outside, because the interests of the working class are universal, and universal solidarity is a must for the socialist struggle. Competition, if competition and cutthroat competition and winning over your opponent is the logic of capital, solidarity and building fraternities, building solidarity links with other workers is the logic of working class struggle. But Stalinism was rejecting the idea of internationalism and was supporting the interest of the Soviet Union, sometimes despite the interest of the workers in other countries. But why? Why did Stalinism come into being? Well, we can't just have a very superficial explanation of Stalinism. According to some, it was due to the personality cult, Stalin's personalities, or the way people perceive Stalin. This is only superficial understanding of Stalinism. As Marxists, we try to understand the social and political and economic dynamics that gave rise to Stalinism. And let's talk about history a bit. As I said, the Russian Revolution took place in 1917. If you read the history of Russian Revolution, the actual process of Russian Revolution was not a very violent one. Not many people were killed during the revolution. It's surprising. One of the biggest countries was going through a revolutionary process. In a relatively backward country, less developed working class, despite this limited power, was taking over the state power, but it was relatively non-violent. But after the revolution, during the Civil War, which was supported by imperialist powers in the world, there was a bloodshed. And the working class in Soviet Union were exposed to unprecedented violence because they were fighting against the imperialism-backed bourgeoisie and land aristocracy. And during this process, many talented, devoted socialists were killed. So after Civil War, Soviet Union found itself in a position where its productive forces, industrial base was somewhat demolished. It had to go through a very rapid process of industrial development. And on the other hand, its cadre, its very talented, devoted comrades were killed. So this was a country that had to develop very rapidly in the hands of non-talented, non-experienced few. This gave rise to bureaucratization in the Soviet Union. And I think Civil War was the number one reason why this bureaucratization took place. And secondly, as I said, Russia was relatively a backward country in 1970, relative to obviously England, France, Germany, where a very well-developed working class existed. So in relative terms, the English proletariat, the German proletariat, both intellectually, organizationally, were way more developed than the Russian or the working class in the Soviet Union. However, they lost the German, the English, the French working class lost the struggle. The revolution, the socialist revolution, the working class revolution was not successful in those countries. So the workers in the Soviet Union found themselves in a very difficult position. They didn't have the support, the much anticipated support of the international Western European brothers and sisters. That was the second dynamic alongside with the Civil War that led to bureaucratization and rise of Stalinism. Okay, so what is the lesson from this Stalinism today? I think we can draw two, at least two. We should be against bureaucratization. So in our unions, in NDP, which is the working class organizations, in our community organizations, we should always strive for democracy. In our unions, we should challenge the bureaucratic leaders and fight for union democracy. Lesson one. Lesson two, socialism in one country is still not possible. And any organization that attempts to transform the society should have international allies in other countries. I am a member of Socialist Action, which is in solidarity with an international organization called International. We have comrades in the United States which are trying to do the same thing that we're trying to do here in Canada. We have comrades in other countries as well. Internationalism, henceforth, is a very important component of revolutionary Marxism that we stand for. So the lesson number two is that we should build those linkages. Okay, I talked about permanent revolution. I can elaborate on this concept in the discussion further. I talked about Stalinism, and let me conclude with the third notion, that is the transitional demands. Transitional demands, just in your mind, I think for clarification, you can differentiate transitional demands from maximum demands and minimum demands. A minimum demand can be defined as something that the current capitalist system can deliver. Universal basic income. It's a progressive demand, maybe, theoretically speaking, but it's a demand that the current bourgeois system in Canada can deliver. So, if you fight for that minimum demand, it would lead into a reformist movement, which will not help us to challenge the capitalist system. So the difference of transitional demand from a minimum demand is that transitional demands are like arrows directed towards the heart of the capitalism. These are demands that which cannot be realized in capitalism. Okay? Unlike universal basic income, demands such as free housing for all is a possible demand. It's not unrealistic. You know, the people in the working class movement, our working sisters and brothers, would find this as a realistic demand, housing for all. Peter is running on a campaign that says free housing for all. Yet, this is a demand, unlike the universal income, basic income, that cannot be realized within the boundaries of capitalism. So it challenges the capitalist, that demand challenges the capitalist mode of production. And transitional demand is not a maximum demand. Maximum demands are useful for transitional purposes. Let's give an example of the maximum demand. Classless society now. If I go to a labor council meeting tomorrow, where organizations, labor organization meets, and I say, classless society now, let's get rid of all social classes. People, are you crazy? What the heck are you talking about? If I say like, oh, okay, family is a social structure that creates oppression. We should get rid of family structure right now, a maximum. Now, workers will like, what the heck are you talking about? What are you? Are you for, a pervert or something like that? No, you can't bring the working class into your struggle with such maximum demand. So transitional demand should be challenging the capitalist mode of production, but it should also be realistic in the eyes of the working class. It's a propaganda tool in that sense. It has a function of organizing the workers around it. Free education for all, free housing for all, these are all transitional demands. These transitional demands, though, if I go to the street and talk about these transitional demands, I can't bring people to my struggle because people would like to see a comprehensive picture. People like to see a comprehensive picture where my transitional demands fit. And a comprehensive set of demands can be delivered by an organized party. If you don't have an organized party that is built on the past struggles of the working class, you cannot develop demands that are comprehensive, that are related to all spheres of social life. Because people need to believe that you are incapable of leading a struggle that will try to realize those comprehensive set of demands that are related to every aspect of the social life. Socialist Action is a party like that. It has a program, it has a Marxist program, which is online at socialistaction.ca. This program includes demands that are related to most aspects of the social life and economic life and political life. It creates policies about almost every political issue that is in the people's agenda. How? Well, we read the history. We were involved in the past struggles. We learn from the history. Of course, these ideas can be challenged. We're not dogmatists. Tomorrow we can change our policies, but you have to convince us with real scientific approach. But with the knowledge that we now have, we're trying to develop policies together in a democratic setting, demands that are directed towards the heart of the capitalism, but yet at the same time very realistic in the eyes of the working class. So before going to the discussion and questions part, let me summarize what I just said and underline the lessons that we can draw from this presentation. I started with the permanent revolution, that notion, which suggests that working class should be independent of the movement of the bourgeoisie. I think the lesson that we should draw from that is that the working class, the NDP should not align with liberals. No votes for liberals. Lesser evilism is wrong. Secondly, I talked about Stalinism, and I touched upon two dimensions of Stalinism, bureaucratization, and I think the lesson that we should draw is that in our unions, in NDP, in our community organizations, we should all strive for democracy and challenge the bureaucrats. And also the second aspect of Stalinism, socialism in one country, is impossible. Socialism is in one country is impossible. We should fight for an international struggle, and we should be members of parties such as Socialist Action, which have international ties. And thirdly, I ended my presentation with the notion of talking about transitional demands, which are demands that cannot be met under capitalism, yet they are they're realistic, unlike maximum demands. So I'm happy to take your questions and comments. Thank you.